So this session is membership development and membership engagement. So we're going to have some fun. Today we're going to talk about a variety of different things. We'll kind of share some best practices, and I use the word best loosely. And I'll get to that here in a minute. But in our last session, well, let me tell you what the plan is. I'll tell you what happened last week. So the plan is we're going to go through some thoughts, discussions, then we're going to get together in groups and we're going to create some best practice ideas ourselves. And then we're going to take those ideas and we're going to push them back out to you guys so that you can leverage all the great minds in this room. And this is the second session, so there'll be 2 more tomorrow. So the first session, we never got to that part. There was so much engagement in talking about the challenges and the issues and the opportunities and the successes in the room, and we didn't even get to that part, so which is fine by me. We'll go off script as long as you guys are happy with what we're trying to do today. So that's the plan. At the end, if we have time for the group session, we'll do that. If not, it'll probably be a good session.
This time,
So let's
this time we won't have another session, so we could go over.
We can go as long as you want.
Don't you get dinner?
I have 6 o'clock dinner.
It's an happy hour day.
So membership is tough, and you know we've been involved with COVID. We've been involved with the before and after effects of COVID. We're trying to figure out how to project our to our members. How do we communicate our messages? Is it Zoom? Is it live? It's a mess. Right, but it's always been that way. It's been a tough challenge to grow membership, regardless of before COVID or after COVID. It doesn't really matter. And I know there's some folks that have been around for a while that can echo that. But I think the thing that, like in our particular club, we were fortunate. We actually budgeted for about a 20% decline in this past year, and we finished about 4% down. So we were pretty happy about that. But it took a lot of work. It took a lot of creative thinking, a lot of ideas flowing between a lot of different people, new people, older people, etc., to try to figure out how to stem the tide. And we're pretty proud of that. Not where we want to be, but at the end of the day, my point is that membership is just hard work. And when you're talking about trying to engage your current members, it's a different type of hard work than it is trying to grow your new members or bring new members into the door. They're just different. But at the end of the day, it's something that we all have to do, and we have to do it more creatively now than we ever have had to in the past, in my opinion. So let's talk about you guys. What went on with COVID with your membership? How many people actually grew their membership with COVID? And you are from where? Lincoln. Okay. So come on up. You can teach this class. And how many people were flat? Or 5%, between flat and 5% down.
So, yeah.
Okay, good. What about 10% down? Any 10%ers? Any 20%ers?
But we don't know.
Good. Good. That's good. There was a couple clubs that actually declined by 20% in the last session, so that's good to know that not everybody was in that situation. But it's tough. And today we're going to talk a little bit about. Just did that one. We're not alone. You know, we're not alone in this effort. Sorry, I'm in your way here. We have competition that are listed here. We have other competition that are not listed here, but it's tough. These are numbers from these types of organizations over the last 10 years, depending upon what data is available. Some of it's more recent than others, but obviously they're in decline. And we are in the States. We're not globally. We're staying flat globally. So it's something that we're going to have to work hard at to try to come up with creative ideas. So what I did was before this session, I got one of my friends together. Anybody know this guy?
Uncle Albert.
Somebody said Samuel Clemens in the last session. I didn't even know who that was. But
we know Sam Adams.
we're going to get to know him tonight. So anyway,
happy hour.
you know, one of the quotes I saw from Mark Twain was, I think, awesome. He says that there's no such thing as a new idea. It's impossible. We simply take a lot of old ideas and we put them into a sort of mental kaleidoscope. We give them a turn and we make new and curious combinations. We keep on turning and making new combinations indefinitely, but they are the same old pieces of colored glass that have been used throughout the ages. So I think that's kind of a neat symbolism to Rotary, because there aren't that many great new ideas in Rotary. In fact, he came back to say a little bit later, there are no original ideas.
Already said that.
So today we're going to talk about a few best practices that have been experienced from a number of people. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's really about getting your own kaleidoscope out. You get to be, since you're in the front row, you get to.
Okay.
And when you turn that knob, that dial on the other end, you're going to see a whole different set of different glasses in there. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
That's not
You
a
wouldn't
goal.
believe what I had to go through to buy those.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In my last session, we were talking about, they were saying that Rotary Club membership is increasing in Asia, Africa, but not the US. So why this big difference?
You know, I think it's, there's a bunch of ideas to that, or answers to that question. I think domestically, it's been around for
100 years, and stale and old.
Yeah, and I think it's, people don't understand in our society the value of Rotary compared to the other societies around the world. I know, my son went on a mission trip. He went to Uganda in his senior in high school. And the first thing he saw when he went into the small town was a Rotary Center. And so it's like, those are the things that those folks in other parts of the world, they know the value of Rotary more than we do. We have so much other noise, in our environment. I think it impacts, how we do with membership as well. What are some other perspectives? I mean, why are our numbers in the States declining, and other parts of the world they're on the increase? Yeah.
Well, I just think that in general, at least here, younger people are just not joining organizations, period.
Why is that?
And I don't know why that is, but they're just not. It's a different dynamic.
I think they're spending a lot of time on their phone.
Well, yes.
I think the culture in the United States is work. And I think a lot of people spend so much time at work and so much time like really working and getting all their tasks done that this just seems like a luxury that a lot of people can't. And it's not even, I'm not saying that they can't afford the dues, I'm saying they can't afford that much time in their week.
Definitely some truth to that.
And that goes along with the fact that the Europeans have a long holiday vacation,
Yeah,
and we don't. And we sometimes don't take it off.
I think that tied to what you were saying about that younger generation or that next generation, how people connect and how they engage in things is very different than how it was. And like you were saying, it's that face-to-face time looks different to different people.
Sure.
So that's probably.
They do text to text, right?
Comment back there?
Yes. I know from my own experience in the work I do as a professional that with this current generation that's, whether you call it the 20, 30 somethings, it's really, again, how they came in, some of the norms, the attitudes, but it's really that they really truly prefer more episodic engagement. It's got a beginning, it's got an end. And what we're talking about is something that is a much more, long-term commitment. And that is very off-putting.
I think there's a lot of truth there. I mean, you think about the number of jobs that
Yeah.
younger people have. They don't think anything of it.
Well, it's more egalitarian for them. I'll do for it, it'll do for me, and when the love is over, I move on.
Right.
And that's episodic.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that I really want to learn from you here, like how do we define and advertise the value of Rotary membership? Because I think each one of us would acknowledge that if we find value in something, we're willing to be part of it.
Yeah.
I'm not, let my PE go first, because I don't think he's talking.
Yeah, so I think it's not a Rotary issue. I think it's the concept of belonging to a club issue. This could be a social club, it could be Rotary. the millennials, they're used to getting what they want right now, either via the phone or Amazon Prime, and that's their attention
Instant
span.
gratification.
Right, and it's instant, exactly. So I don't think they have the perspective of the long term.
No doubt about that. Yeah,
So, I see it from a couple of different perspectives, a little bit younger. I know when I first came to I had never heard of Rotary, so. And then when I asked my grandma, I was like, oh, Grandma, I'm in this Rotary Club. She's like, yeah, I heard about them. I was like, oh, really? Okay, Grandma. And then it's perception, because inevitably, every time I tell someone I'm in Rotary, the very next thing I hear is, oh, that's the old white man's club. How are you there? That's literally almost, if they've heard of Rotary, the next thing is, it's the old white man's club. How are you there? So now when I tell them I'm the president nominee, they're really just like, how did that happen? And then I say it took 120 years, so there you go. But, so I think it's some of that, it's the perception, it's, you know, what people think Rotary is and what it's about and what they know of it. And just not knowing what Rotary does, and just being on a call with a now prospective member. I was like, how did you hear about Rotary? Because I had never heard about it. And she was like, I was on a different call for business development, and a woman was in London, and she said, you should join your local Rotary club. And she said, what's Rotary? So then she Googled Rotary, she saw our club, and then saw some of our projects and was like, oh my God, I want to be a part of that. So then when I call her and I tell her about more of what we do and what we have done in the community, she was like, oh my God, I so much want to be a part of that. That's what I want to be a part of. So I think it's a matter of getting out there and telling people or showing them somehow more of what we do and how we're a part of the community and what we've done in our community and around the world. Because I started with Job 1, and then I went to all of our international projects, and then came back to Chicago and talk about the other projects we do and how she can be a part of any of those, how she, you know, where she most wants to be in. And that's, you know, she was just like, I'm filling out my application tomorrow, and when can we meet and talk? But, you know, I didn't get that introduction to Rotary. I just happened to go to a meeting because someone said go. And if I had gone off my first impression, I would not be a Rotarian, because it was a whole bunch of old white men sitting in a room that weren't very talkative, not very inclusive, kind of wondering why you're there and who brought you and why do I need. So I think when we think about DEI, diversity is great, equity is great, but if people don't feel included and don't feel like what you have to say or what you're bringing to the table is important, it doesn't matter how many people look different from you, but if you all have the same mindset or the same group think of we're going to keep doing it the way we're doing it, you're not making new people and those younger people included, then it won't matter.
no doubt. One more question and we'll or comment, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it comes back to being very intentional. You need to be crystal clear in what is your mission. We rewrote the Nashville's mission statement recently to freshen it, to make it more about who we are today. And I think, you know, and Lauren and Suzanne can correct me if they disagree, but I think Rotary is positioned, at least in the Nashville community, as business leaders. These are people you want to know and you want to be part of that group. And I think we've got work to do. I think COVID really helped take the luster off that. And I think about, you know, some of the sessions this morning were excellent, really got you thinking about it. But the apathy reality that has settled in as a result of this, not just within your Rotary membership, but within your community and your business activities. And I think how you revitalize that. But if you go back to the fundamentals, I think one of the keys to membership development and growth that I've witnessed in Nashville was how we go about it. And Suzanne was the keeper of the list always. We are constantly looking for who do you want to be in Rotary? And from the younger generation, 40 under 40, we're going after those that are already showing potential to be good leaders And I was just teasing with you, it's like, well, we ought to be recruiting in the sororities and fraternities in the university, because we know they are joiners and they like to be together and they're social, so maybe that's a good fit. But you gotta think about that fit and then get intentional and across the industries, or who's new companies to town, and start getting real specific around who you want to target and who knows them, and so who can help. And what is it? And I think you made a great point about what drew you in, and the way you've recruited others is very oriented towards the services, the community involvement. Ours, I think our programming is just top notch. I mean, you want to be there. It's interesting, it's relevant, it's specific to the community or to Nashville's business market or whatever. It's got the right variety there. So I think what you were touching on, you've got multiple levers you can pull around membership, but it's your messaging when you go out there and you're talking to people in general. If I'm in Nashville, how do I want to be connected? Who do I want to be affiliated with? And Rotary is one of those organizations, and you've got to guard it and keep it going. But I think that's just a couple of things, observations that we.
Yeah, I mean, I led with service because that's what she came with. She's like, I'm really interested in this program, so let me tell you about everything that. But then when she said she's a lawyer, I said, you can't sneeze hard in our club and not find a lawyer. I said, girl, I was like, if you look at the chain club, I was like, this, you can fill out your way. And she was like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. But I mean, you just kind of, that's come through the conversation part. But I led with service because that's how she came to us. So I think that's also about when they reach out to you to say, I'm interested, what do they reach out with? And kind of.
But you've got to capture every single name. I mean, we have that list of potential members and who's the connect point, and then they'll just email me. Okay, when are we going to get them in here?
Sounds good, thanks. And I think, just kind of overarching comment that we face different challenges today than we did 20 years ago, right? With trying to attract people to come into our club. We had problems 20 years ago that were just different problems we have today. So it's just a matter of trying to figure out how to solve today's problems differently than we did 20 years ago. Because it's not going to work if you're going to approach things, from a perspective that old. So let's talk a little bit about some concepts and ideas that I think have worked well in our particular club. And I lead with simplicity, because I don't know. Today I've gotten probably 200 emails and I've received 14 phone calls, and my world is a mess today. And I'm doing all this today. My world is crazy. Your world is crazy as well, right? Everybody's busy. It's a complex world we live in. There's no time to do anything. If we try to figure out how to come up with simplicity in our lives, and specifically related to membership, then good things happen. Because when's the last time you were in a meeting trying to convey to another member about what the values of Rotary are and the greatness of Rotary and whatever, and they're looking like, what do you, if the message is way too complex in that particular scenario. So trying to boil your messaging down, and I think you guys do a great job with that in Nashville. I spent a lot of time with Harry at this conference a couple years ago. But creating simplicity, I think, is key in everything that we do with this. And I think one of the simplicity thoughts that I have is that membership development is nothing more than customer service. It's trying to figure out what you know about your customers, what are the value propositions that you need to convey to them, and making sure that your messaging is tied to that. So every club has different requirements and needs with regard to customer service and membership engagement. But I try to boil it down to simplicity. It's just about customers. If you lose your customers, you're not going to eat. So treat them as customers, and you'll be much better off in the long run. And membership development is just sales. It's gutting it out. Even when you have that list, I'm going to keep picking on you back here because I love some of the things you said. But you have that list, and you have people that are going to reach out to those people to try to convince them. It's hard. It's just gutting it out. And sometimes it's easier than others. Other times it takes a long time. But it's just pure and simple sales. And I think the last part of this little graphic is marketing. And there's internal marketing that you need to be thinking about, from how you engage your members, your customers. There's external marketing that you need to be thinking about with those value propositions that we were just describing and so forth. And they're going to mean something different to those people that don't know anything about Rotary. And let's face it, we're the lucky ones. We're the lucky ones in this room because we've been involved with Rotary for a long time in many cases. And we're lucky because we know the value of it. And there are so many people that don't understand the value of Rotary. It's our job to tell them. It's our job to reach out to them and let them know, because if we don't, they're missing an opportunity, and we're about helping others find greatness. So simplicity is really important. So I'm going to kind of carry on those themes a little bit and talk about some different thoughts on membership engagement or customer service. I think one of the first things is making sure that how you organize your club for engagement is really, really important. Putting the right people in the right seats on the bus, as the saying goes. Making sure that somebody who's going to lead your engagement process is really customer focused, really customer oriented. Because if they're not, if they're focused on something else, they're not going to do a great job, and they're not going to lead others on the committees that are involved with membership engagement to be successful. So making sure that person's customer service minded. I think in our particular case, we've tried to create continuity year to year. So not in every case, but in some cases you'll have the membership engagement chair who's there for 2 years, and there's another person that's slotted behind them to take over. And they learn after the first year, and then they take over and so forth. So there's continuity year to year. And I think that what that does is make sure that your messaging doesn't change dramatically overnight just because there's, July 1 happens. And we've all seen it, we've all heard it, we all know what that feels like, and we don't like it, I think, for the most part. So continuity, I think, is really important. I think, and I apologize, some of the things that are on here we talked about this morning as well, but I'll reiterate some of them. But I think trying to make sure that you look at your members and bucketize them. Is that a word? Bucketize.
I like it. It is
I like it now too, yeah, exactly. So put them in those buckets. So we have women in Rotary, we have corporate members, we have YPs. And we've put people into those classifications not mentally, but I mean from an engagement committee perspective, and try to create programming that will appeal to them. And when you do that, and you get like-minded people together in their own little micro world, then there's engagement opportunities that happen, there as well. So the other part is, and we've all been part of boards where, out of 12 people, there's going to be 8 or 9 that are really fully engaged. There's 2 or 3 that are not, right? And I think that as a leader of your board, you need to require, demand, whatever strong word you want to use, that your board has to be totally behind membership engagement. And that means that they don't have to be involved in every event that you have. We've got, I don't know, Brett, how many events do we hold a year? Probably...
A normal year, I'd say probably 10 to 12.
For just engagement purposes.
Just engagement.
Yeah. So they're not going to be at every one. There's vacations and everything else, but the expectation is your board's going to support this whole process, because if they're not there and they're not visible, your members see it. I mean, the members are not silly. They understand exactly where the leadership is and the things that they should be promoting. Okay. So, question?
Yeah, can I ask on that, when you said an event and you said engagement, is this like a project or is this an engagement event? Or what does that mean?
That's a great question. So if we let's start with the projects. If we do the projects, President Melinda Kelly, who you've probably met, I think they've had 15 projects so far since July 1, this Rotary year. It's just been huge. And there were a lot of things in the pipeline. But what I was actually talking about is more social, new member, prospective member type event where we'll have a number of Rotarians there and come. It'll be an evening thing, but it'll be, short, social, and we probably do about once a month where people could come and get to know some Rotarians. We also do some things that are regular, starting back with euchre. Not everyone even plays euchre or knows it.
What's euchre?
Yeah, what is it, right? I grew up on the East Coast, I didn't know what it was. But, there's things that anybody can come visit. But we do some really fun after-hours things. And if somebody just wants to come in for an hour and meet some Rotarians and hear a little bit, and somebody will stand up and speak for about 3 minutes. but it's
And a
a
lot
nice
of them
event.
are, the purpose is engagement, like women in Rotary events that like we had one at the art museum.
Yeah, a nice,
And the purpose was engagement, but oh, by the way, most of the people that went to that event brought in a prospective member. It wasn't about membership development, it was about engagement, but, they worked together. So, but I think it's every club's different in how they approach those things. I guess the point is that everybody's got to be involved for it to really work well. So let's talk a little bit about another opportunity for customer service, and that is recognizing your members. And Nashville's done a great job with this, where every now and then they'll recognize a member, they'll create a flyer basically, and they'll talk about the member, they'll talk about what the member does in the community, just one more touch point that member can be recognized. And it's not the only way that it can be done, but it can be done through social media and other methods. But if you're really lucky, you can actually have a video of that person. You can conduct a video and get a more of a warm feeling than a social media post or whatever. But that's not always easy. But think about things that are powerful that will create engagement. If we have a great service project and we show video of that, or we take video of that, that's an engagement opportunity, because not everybody's going to be able to go to that event. We can show that video at our club meeting, we can post it on social media and so on and so forth. So, and it's not easy to do, it's getting easier. There's different new tools that are out there now that are much easier now than ever before to create video, but that's really important. And then lastly, the last thing on this slide is just the whole succession process. When you see people with leadership potential, make sure that you're paying great attention to them, because they could be somebody that could step into a chair, into the board, into an officer position 5 years from now. I know, tell us a quick story about a person that Brett and I met with, I think it was about 4 years ago, Brett. And he actually he called the meeting, he wanted to know how he could get more engaged with the club, and Brett and I met with him over breakfast, and we kind of coached him along the way on all the steps that he needs to go through to become a leader in this club. And it's a big club, you have to maneuver your way through all the committees and the politics and all the other stuff. So long story short is he's going to be on the board this coming year. And I think the fact that we showed interest in him, and he knew that he could always contact us, call us, and other people that he wanted to tap into, he's now in a position where he's a leader. He'll probably be, I think, the president at some point in the time, maybe 2-3 years from now. He's got that potential. But he could have quit. He could have quit, really, if we wouldn't have, not saying that we were the only people, but if he hadn't felt the love along the way, then he may not be in the club. Yeah.
I think that even starts with your new member orientation, and I think we've all, especially the board members that participate in that, will give examples. I just joined in X, and the first thing I did was get on this committee and that committee, and I think if you can show them what does it look like and see if they're inclined that way. And the other piece is drawing members in. Think about those that are already on other really important boards. You know what the organizations are in town, and you'll watch them, and they're just like that 80-20 rule, and they just stand out. So I think those are the ones succession planning, you go after them.
Question? Comment?
So I've noticed that past presidents like to volunteer for certain roles, and they're not leaving the seat open in the opportunity and coaching someone else in that role. So I think we need to make room for it also. We get so excited about our engagement, we forget about those new members. And it's really an opportunity to do it with them.
There's no doubt about that. We created, I'm sure there's other programs like this in your clubs, but we created a mentor type of a program where we have about, I don't know, Brett, probably 25 people that are mentors that have one or two people that they bring through, and they make sure that they're going through all the different things that create success. So we've done an analysis of the 7 things that you need to do for those people that stay involved in the club. And so we've taken them through that process, and there's a mentor that kind of forces that gently, to make sure that they are doing all the right things. And when they do that, then there's a much higher chance that they're going to be engaged and stay with the club for a longer period of time. So any other ideas on what other clubs are doing?
What are your 7 things?
What are our 7
It's
things?
a service project, and then we want everybody to sign up to be a greeter or sergeant at arms, or, you know, just some basic tasks. We want every member to rotate and do some things. You need to attend the new member orientation. We have a, you know, it's a short class, but there's a new member reception, which is more social. We like people to come with their spouses or partners if they want to bring their spouse or partner. And that's like the list of 7. There's a few, what we found is, and Dave, you've run this for a long time in terms of development. What we found is even just one event like the new member reception, if people come to that, the chance of them staying in the club is much higher.
Oh, yeah.
And you say, well, that was just one event out of, you know, 7, but you can track it and see that that's a pretty key event for them to come to.
Yeah, the new member reception, just to talk about that a little bit longer, because the spouse is involved, how many times have you heard the story where, you know, I don't have time any longer and I'm needed more at home or whatever. And when the spouse is involved, whether it's the male or female, when they understand what Rotary is all about, they can link to the value differently than they can if they're just held outside of the club. And we also created a spouse membership as well that we talked a little bit about to try to get folks to be involved, even if they're not going to be as involved as the other members. So question, comment?
Yeah, after COVID, we went for the low-hanging fruit. We went and tried to re-engage those members who kind of fell off of the Zoom meetings by posting a board. We have a big board with the names of the members that we haven't seen in a while and slips of paper. So we encourage our members to grab with their picture and everything from the directory, give them a call and say, hey, we're back in person, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. And we've been, had a lot of success getting folks back. Also, what we've done is we have a membership packet and folders at our meetings. So when guests come, they get a packet with a membership application. We have a list of all of our activities, the things we've done. While they are at the meeting, they can go through it, we can put their name in if they're interested, etc. And then we follow up. So we've gotten at least 4 or 5 members just from having the packet available for them as guests.
No doubt about it. Any other thoughts, comments? Yeah.
We did change our new member committee and called it Welcome Committee, and they're like a cadre now. So whether that mentor steps in fully or not, they can sign up for a project together, and they do as a group. They sign up for their own social, their own trivia night, and their own fireside, and that seems to be successful. So it's that first year of navigating that, why do I have to pay if my phone goes off during a meeting? Those kinds of things that are subtle, but it's like they're learning all the secrets of the club and how to do it.
Good stuff. So let's talk about some of the other things that we were already really talking about, some of them already, but I love the quote that somebody told me a long time ago: there's nothing better for engagement than a bunch of Rotarians banding together and providing service to those in need. I mean, that paints a picture to, I think, most of us. And when you're at a service event and you're doing great things for, like we have one that was mentioned earlier today, the Condon School, which is a Cincinnati public school, but it's a school that is centered for developmentally disabled kids, and we do a lot of work for them. But the smiles that you see on our members' faces when we're doing work for them are priceless, and I think there's nothing better that can be said about engagement from that angle. And we've talked a little bit about some of these other things already, so I'm not going to bore you here, but we are going to be doing a signature project. We're gearing up for that, and we want to get the entire club, quote unquote, the entire club engaged in that. And there's going to be some people that are going to be check writers, there's going to be some people that are going to be putting in massive hours, and there's going to be some people in between, but we want to try to use that as a way to get the entire club engaged to the extent where that's possible.
What does that mean? How do you define a signature project?
So that's in development right now, but basically it's going to be local, and it's going to be a project that probably will be over an entire weekend, and we'll have many, many tentacles throughout the community. And reaching out to corporations and other types of folks. There's some talk about almost doing like a matchmaking, somebody that needs service, and then pairing them up with people who can provide service, not just Rotarians. So it's in development. But I mean, the bottom line is that through this weekend, we want to create so much buzz about Rotary and do so much good work that we get engagement of our members. We will attract new members if we do this right. And, you know, at the end of the day, providing great service to those that have needs. So, yeah.
Are you considering on your signature local project, you said it's going to be a big weekend thing, are you going to include other Rotary clubs, or is it just going to be the Cincinnati club?
I think we will. I think that's, you know, we're getting development, but I think that's probably going to happen. And I don't think that, I don't think we've done a very good job. In our market, we have 8 to 10 other Rotary clubs that are within probably 20 miles of us, maybe 30 miles. I don't think we've done a very good job engaging them. And there's power in numbers. So I think there's an opportunity, to your point, to be able to do that and have a greater reach and make it about Rotary and not the Rotary Club of Cincinnati, but about Rotary and the service we want to provide.
Just to add to what you're saying, we're from Springfield, Missouri, and we have a president's council with the presidents, past president and president-elect of all the Springfield clubs. We get together once a month for an hour just to kind of share ideas and then occasionally do group projects, and that's been pretty effective for us.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt about it. In fact, I mentioned the international project on here as well, but we don't all have to do our own international projects. I mean, we can collaborate in our markets and between large clubs or whatever to be able to create outcomes. The one that I like is with the Solarize Uganda Now project. Actually, has anybody been in Nathan's session yet?
Yeah.
Dynamic young individual. He actually graduated from the University of Cincinnati, lives down there in Raleigh, and somehow that connection was made for our clubs to collaborate on this project. So the power of Rotary. But you know, that's something that we would have never, had that connection not been there, we would have never been in Uganda. I mean, it was his idea, and our club got behind the idea. But it's just a matter of trying to leverage what we have. Any other thoughts on customer service?
What's this project that you guys been thinking of?
The signature project? That's the one where I was talking about. It's in development right now, but it's kind of like a widespread service weekend. We're going to provide service to a variety of different people. And some that there's actually going to be an online portal where people can request service. And it could be that, you know, to paint a room in a community center or whatever, and matchmaking the need with the resources, and, you know, trying to make a big splash over an entire weekend to be able to do that. So that's the thought. I'll give you the full report in a couple of years. Let's see here. Kind of going on to the membership development side. And there's a repetition here, but in a different way. And I think, again, the leadership aspect of your membership development group has got to be sales focused. Don't put somebody in the chair position that really is not understanding of sales. And I know that that's happened in our club. It's happened in many clubs. And somebody that may have either aspirations or skills to become a leader, you know, an officer or a board member, may not be the best person for that particular role. So think about that from how you make sure that you put the right people in the spot there. And those people that are involved in sales, maybe for a career, they're practicing their craft every day. And some of the great ideas they're going to come up with are going to be valuable to the group and the committee. And some are not, but at the same time, they're passionate about serving their customers, and they're passionate about opening doors and creating the value that our club's trying to convey. The other thing that we did was similar to the engagement side, is we broke our membership development committee into subcommittees. And we purposely created the committees so that you had a couple of YPs, you had a couple of women, you had, you know, a variety of people, corporate members and so forth. And we created subcommittees and had those subcommittees focus on event-driven marketing that appeal to YPs, women, corporate members, etc. And that's been relatively successful. We've added probably in the last year, Brad, I think we've added around 6 to 8 corporate members. And every one of the corporate members in our definition is 3 members. So there's a executive and then 2 other members that are part of the company team. But that's been successful. I think the point of that is that focus your energies on the people that you need to focus on, and think about, you know, what are the events, what are the marketing tactics you're going to use to be able to appeal to those people that you're trying to pursue, because it's just sales, and we're not going to close every deal. We never have, we never will. But at the same time, you know, you have to think strategically when it comes to membership engagement or development. Anybody have any other thoughts on how you're structured, you know, from a membership development perspective? What's worked, what hasn't worked?
I'll tell you something we're doing. I'm Lawrence from Shreveport, and I'm the current president there. We started this year, our average club age, like most, is probably late 50s, early 60s. And we found that we need to get, obviously, more young people in. So this year, we started it last year, but affected it this year by an emerging leaders program. And we're targeting 28 to 35-year-olds. And we want people, we're a executive club, like a lot of us are. So we want people that fit that category, but most of them can't afford the dues, especially when the lunch meal is included in it. So we set up a scholarship form for up to 5 members, 5 potential members, and the club pays for half their dues. So they can join for half price, and we pay half their dues for up to 5 years. And that's a pretty significant savings for a 30-year-old dentist. We have a young dentist in there, it's just blowing and going, and we have young people running.
He's paying full price.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, he's a dentist. What can I say? But we have some that don't fit that category. But anyway, he and another young member, they're both in their early 30s, are actually co-chairs of our membership committee, going out and looking for similar. I'm not going to run into 28, 30-year-old kids, but they will.
Sure. So
they're helping facilitate that, and we have a couple of members who just, I don't know, they just are magnets and attract people. And so far, just this year, we've used 4 of those 5 memberships, and that's 5 total. We don't do 5 a year after year. Once we fill the 5, that's it, until somebody ages out or whatever the case may be. But that's something we're doing to try to get younger members that fit the executive definition, I guess. And so far, just in 3 months, we've gotten 4. So I'm hoping it's going to work. Time will tell.
It's a great idea.
I have a question for you. How, like, when you have the discounted rates, how is that funded?
We set up in our budget, we have a longtime member's name was Bob Ham, and in his name, we set up the Bob Ham Scholarship. Okay. And it's funded through the club dues and just maybe our club foundation. But that's a line item in our budget. And I want to add a caveat to that. Just because they join at half price, they basically sign a contract saying, I'm going to participate, I'm going to do this. We do, like y'all were talking about mentors and things, we try to have a mentor, make sure they follow the 7 steps. Many of what you mentioned we do. And so it's a contract. And if they don't show up, they don't serve on committees, we drop them. Then we go find somebody else that fits.
They cannot be late in dues, but they pay. But they also, when we sign up, they have to write a paragraph why they would qualify for this. You know, and a lot of them, it's because my employer doesn't, you know, subsidize my dues. And, you know, so they have to know that they're getting this, you know.
But not a free lunch, right? But it's not a free lunch.
Not a free lunch.
Well, in Nashville, it's kind of interesting because we established an emerging leaders committee years ago, and we, you know, initially probably had 5 or 6 members in that category, and we met with them to talk about all the issues that would face someone in that group, and we talked about a discounted. And their response was, I don't want to be at the Happy Meal table. I'm going to either be a member or not be a member. And so we never did the discount because as a group, they didn't want to do that. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
As a group, but individually, they probably would have loved the chance.
Possibly.
They don't know that. The other members don't generally know that. We don't want it to be a stigmatism because we feel like they're going to move up in income and they'll be a regular member, fairly soon. So we don't advertise that and the board members know it, but that's it.
I would say, because I was also one of those people who got brought on during that campaign, and that was in 2012. And to be a member at that time of Rotary and to be able to know what that club stood for as executive leaders, I was really proud to be able to be there, and to know that I was there fully was mentally something that was very positive for me. But I think that how y'all are setting it up with such a structure that goes around with it, and that you're not saying we're going to bring in 20 people with this, it's limited and it has those other things to it. I think that's creative thinking with it. I'd also maybe throw in there for any of those people who are half price, because they can, if it's when they age out at 40, or maybe add something in there, or when they are ready to offer that opportunity to someone else and to step in as away from the Happy Meal table into that full standing, so that someone else can be a beneficiary of it, because you don't want to lose them when they are at the end of that 5 years.
Yeah.
Is anybody here from San Antonio, by the way, or? Because they have a very well-developed program, very similar. So if you know anybody from San Antonio, ask them about their program. It's a lot more structured. It's in Cincinnati. We have a group not affiliated with us, but it's called Leadership Cincinnati. And you have to go through an application process, and it's in other cities and whatnot. But it's a very structured, rigid program, and theirs is more structured towards that, where they're involved with a variety of different service projects as a class, as a group. And it's with the idea that their class is always going to be their class, forever and ever. 10 years from now, they're going to get together as a class and celebrate whatever, but it's a class, it's a unit. So, but it's very structured, yeah.
Yeah, I would like Rotary leadership to consider that the whole segment of the community that is missing from Rotary. I applaud the fact that there are a lot of women in Rotary, but as I look around in different Rotary clubs, not many people of color. And there are many opportunities in our club. I'm Gene West, Rotary Club of Louisville, and as you all know, nationally, Louisville went through quite a bit of turmoil over the summer with Breonna Taylor and social justice. And our club stood up and responded. So we have a mission to embrace and reflect our community better. And want to talk to me later, I'll talk to you about how we did that. 2 days of 8-hour forums, bringing everybody in, from politicians to ministers to activists, to get input. We developed a plan, created a committee, and a DEI statement and mission. And that in itself has brought in a lot more interest from that part of the community that, as you say, just thought Rotary was all white men. I think we're missing a lot of opportunities to have all kinds of members in our clubs, and that's not talked about a lot. But I think in these times, that's something that all leaders should consider.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, most companies are beginning, if they already haven't built, the DEI programs and approaches and so forth. So I know my kids are 20, 23, 25, and 27, and they don't fit into that classification necessarily, but they're very interested in, what companies are doing in that regard. So if our clubs are not speaking to that, we're going to be missing the boat at some point.
Right.
So, yeah.
I want to put Beth on the spot and ask her to talk about the initiative that she started.
Oh, we lost a long-term member, Dr. Donald Judson, who was a district governor. We all looked up to him for many, many years, and he died this past year. So in his memory, we're starting a Judson Fellowship to help us with our DEI goals in the club. And it'll offer a full scholarship to a potential member in our community. They don't have to jump through any hoops. They don't have to apply, they don't have to give a speech about it at the end of the year, they just get to come into the club, and the board is going to make the nomination in the spring for them to start in July. It's something to help us meet our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals of the club. And that was just a special passion of his. He was very welcoming and wanted the club to grow, so we thought that might help us. And in his memory, people are making gifts to our local foundation to provide for this in perpetuity. So we did the math, how much do we need, and as principal to spin off enough for a membership every year.
That's awesome.
Would that be the same person the second year too, or do
No, it would
just
be a
for 1 year
different,
term?
just 1 year. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. The hope is that we'll draw them in enough and get them excited about it that they'll figure out a way to continue that membership.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about some other things that when you think about from a membership development perspective. And, you already mentioned in the back about the first sales tool on here. It's great to have a tool, but it's also better to have a tool that speaks your message. And we went through a process about 18 months ago to completely, we used to use the blue folders that RI provided and a few brochures in there, and we created our own brochure. I can pass it around. It's something that you have to keep updated because our needs change, our desires change, our success has changed and so forth. But that's a tool that for that person that's going to come to the lunch, that you can obviously use that as a benefit. Our website was redone about, Brett, 5 years ago probably. And we've kept up new content and so forth, but it's probably time for a refresh. So is your website, is it selling your club for you? Is it, because when those people that like the young lady that you talked about, she probably went to your club website at some point. Googled Rotary to find out what all we do. Is your website really speaking the right language? And if it isn't, doesn't mean you have to overhaul it. Just means you have to change the content so you're going to be speaking to the audience properly. And then we do have a number of membership options. So we've added the spouse membership, as I mentioned a couple times. But I think continually evaluating your membership offering. It's your product. You know, when people are going to come into the club, what is your value proposition? We've talked about that. What are your financial membership options? Do you need to tweak those? Do you need to rethink those to attract new types of classifications? I think you can go overboard and have complexity, but at the same time, you know, is your product sound? Because if it isn't, you're gonna work so hard to bring somebody so close to the finish line and then not have them come over the goal line. So that's something that you need to be thinking about. Has anybody tried any membership campaigns that are long-lasting throughout the entire year? Has anybody done any of that, as opposed to just?
We've had shorter ones, but
Okay.
not longer. Yeah.
Tell me about your shorter ones.
So it was interesting. So the shorter ones had, one of them, it was I feel like the award was a Southwest voucher or something along those lines for the person who brought in the most. And then last
year. For a canceled flight or a?
Taxes or anything like that. Talk to me later about that one. They'll have you at Southwest. The other one was last year when they did it, they had almost a package of gift cards to small businesses. And I have to say it was, there were misconceptions as to how it had come about. People thought that we were spending money to bring people in. And you also heard from, or I heard from older members who were there when the club was much smaller, and to them it gave the impression of we're just bring people in so you can get an award at the end of the day. So what I learned from that, and I haven't been part of creating that campaign, but what I learned from it was you really have to be careful about your messaging in the process, because there is something that is very special and unique about being a member of Rotary and you don't, your messaging, to your point of that sale is, you know, you don't want to make others who are members feel that that has been cheapened, if you will. At the same time, we wonder how many people that person who complained about it had brought in the past 10 years and it was not, so.
Yeah, my name's Greg from the Tacoma Club, and we're part of District 5020, which is part of Washington State, and Vancouver Island, which is Canada, so we're an international district. And at our district, any member of any club that proposes a new member in the next 6 months gets entry into a raffle for a free trip to Houston to attend the convention. So that's something that's been in our district, district-wide, as an incentive.
We have a campaign, it's called The Power of One, and we had a person that developed it and created a video to go along with it. And the idea is that the power of one, meaning that not a member bringing in a new member, but each member bringing a prospective member to lunch. Just simply bring them to lunch. And if you do that, then for every member, prospective member you bring to lunch, you get your name is put into a hat. At the end of the year, we draw for a full year of free lunches. And we felt like that, okay, well, the math will work if we're successful with the campaign, and it's proved successful where we actually have done it. This is our second year of doing it. But I think the point of it is not necessarily the campaign itself, but is the consistent messaging that you send to your members to make sure they're thinking about new members to bring in. And you know, the power of one phrase, you know, we repeatedly talk about that. You can go overboard at the same time. I've heard members come up to me where they say that, you know, we don't really need to hear membership every 30 seconds at the podium. So you have to be careful of that. But I think the bottom line is that you know, if you have a campaign and you get your team rallied around the campaign, there's a chance there's going to be some likelihood of success. So that's worked out fairly well for us.
Got a comment?
Yeah.
I think your metrics matter too. I know in our club, we know, and you know who they are. I mean, there are people that just naturally, they just bring them in like crazy. Look at them, find their best practices. But you do sort of monitor who brings in new members. And I know in our club, if I want to bring a guest and it's my boss or somebody that's interested in the speaker, I pay my $30 to have my guest come. But if they're a prospective member, that will comp that. So you're encouraged to bring a guest that's a potential member at no cost to that hosting member, obviously. But and then one other thing we did this past year was that we challenged the board. Everybody on the board needs to bring in, you know, at least identify. Let's get some, you know, if you can't get your leaders to walk the walk, how do you expect your members to walk the walk? And so I think that was another, you know, set that expectation that they need to be able to do that too.
Yeah.
We ran a campaign during COVID that we waived our application fee, and then we waived our membership fee for a couple of months for new members. And I felt that it was a great opportunity to get people in who, when they see the numbers, they get sticker shock at first, and, you know, because that value proposition maybe isn't really there. You know, like I've always been thinking about it.
What are your dues?
$160 a month, including meals, $83 without meals. And a whole list of other ones.
A month or a quarter?
A month.
A month.
A month.
Those are your dues?
Yeah.
That's your
Yeah, 160 includes the meals, 83 does not include your meals, and it is monthly.
$225 a quarter.
And how much are your
I do
meals?
leave in Chicago, so $35 is a member, 40 if you're not, if you bring someone else. So sometimes that sticker shock of looking at that sometimes threw people off. So we did get some great new members that were like, oh, now I see the value of being here, and you know, we had the mayor of Chicago, we had Tammy Duckworth, so we have great programming too. And so that helped our membership, although some people did drop off once, you know, it was time to start paying, but as you just get that in general. But I think that was something that kind of helped us tap into people that we've always kind of been interested in telling to come out, but that you kind of know, like, they're just gonna look at the numbers and go, no, I'm not paying that per month. So that was, you know, sometimes you kind of got to get over that hurdle. to get them to listen to the value proposition.
I'm not sure how other clubs, I don't know how you do your membership, but in Nashville, we do a very proactive approach to membership, where we identify in our community who we want to invite versus just anybody tell us, and bring your next door neighbor because he's a good guy. And so that's kind of helped with our diversity. It's helped with the quality of member because we're hand selecting them, and then we just find a logical member of the club to be the sponsor for that person and hopefully get them involved. So at any time, there's probably 150 people on a list that we're working, and, you know, they may say not this year, but they can, you know, and just going back to them. And we use things like the Nashville Business Journal, the Future 50, the 40 Under 40, all those various lists that already proven leaders. So that's how Nashville does. I bet we don't get 12 that are just, and rarely do we get them where they contact us.
Yeah, when was the last lead that we all got from somebody hitting the Rotary International site?
Actually, I think we've gotten a really good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Really good.
Yeah.
That's a good question that Chicago just raised. What is the general dues that different clubs have? So you mentioned yours is $160 a month.
Correct.
What's this other average dues? I was curious to see.
All of those statistics are in that large club survey that you received, and it's very detailed from each club, because some of us have dues and lunch structures that are together, and some come out separate. But it's in that. You know, it's obviously going to depend on where you are, and I mean, Nashville's expensive, and parking's
due structure depends on membership coming in because of the due structure.
It's in that survey.
What's on the WBD folder?
It was, it would have been emailed to you by me.
Let's start.
I'm sorry, I have one other question. So,
but if you didn't get it, let us know. Okay.
now, I understand the point of, you know, being in Rotary is, you know, an important thing, and you know, and you know, when Rotary started, obviously, you know, there was categories and only one person per category and all these other things. But at which point is it that you're excluding people who could be great Rotarians just because they don't meet your list? Because they're not, no, I mean, being completely honest, you know, at some point, if you're only targeting 40 at 40 and 50 at 50, you know, and all those things, and because you want these great leaders, you want to be able to just point out that, you know, we have the leaders in the community, and that's what we do, and that's where we are, and that's Rotarians, and, you know, but they're great people. Because I would not make that list. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to make the best 50 under 50 or any of those other things, because I'm not known like that in my community. So I would not have made your list. But I served 3,000 meals with my club last year to people in our community because I was a part of Rotary, and I've helped 40 kids go to college and been there for them to help them move forward, and kept this program alive to help that group because I believed in it. So I would not have necessarily made the list of many clubs in this room right now, but yet I'm a great Rotarian.
I have a quick question to Nashville. You do have that list, and I think it's useful. But do you also have Rotarians individually recruited?
Yeah, and that was what I was just about to say. So first off, thank you for what you've done, because that's huge and tremendous, and those are great accomplishments, and that's exactly what I think all of us want in a Rotarian. For that, and that list that Suzanne or that Lisa has spoken with, that's almost been like a starting block that starts jogging ideas in people's heads too. So that committee and even individuals will send in ideas that they have, or different people. I've referred people that would not have been on any of those lists, but it's recognizing you know, the skills that you look for, or the traits of someone, because not everybody's going to be represented in 40 under 40 or women of influence or things like that. So it really is kind of that starting point to get the brain jogging and working with it. They do get a number of people that will submit in to the executive director and say, hey, I've got this person, or I want to bring someone to a meeting. So it's that net does get.
Okay.
get cast out further than it sounds.
Yeah, and I also just want to point out, because it was brought up with another president-elect, that you also there may be great leaders out there that work for companies that because of maybe your membership standards, they can't do because of where they work. So the president from DC, she was saying she was talking to some other clubs, and she goes, I actually probably couldn't be a member of that club because I work for the government, and because they're so exclusive, I'm not allowed to be a member of that club because of their exclusivity. So that's also something we might want to start thinking about as larger clubs is, are we putting ourselves in a position where we can't get government leaders and we can't get government employees that can be a part of our club because we're so exclusive on who we will take and how we will take and what they have to do.
We
So
might
that's
have-
just another thing to.
Yeah, we might have a good idea because Nashville just sent out a survey, but specifically about public officials. That would be a good reference for everybody. I think
Yeah,
you
we can
guys
share that.
gathered, I think Olivia sent out that
Yeah.
survey.
Yeah, we can share that, and there was something that was a part of a clause that was in there actually that had come from International, and International had removed it 4 years ago or something
Maybe.
like that, and none,
There was
you
a
know,
difference at one time in elected officials and appointed government employees.
Mhm.
So one was allowed, but I've been around Rotary for 30 years. And back in the day, you could, I mean, it was Rotary bylaw, you could not have elected officials because they cycle out so quickly, they don't get that same dedication to Rotary. And they've only just taken that out of their bylaws.
Yeah.
I said, check and see if it's still in there, but it used to be in there.
Makes sense.
and that was, yeah, so that's been a recent one, so we will.
But I mean, not
probably
even like,
reflect
well,
that.
like she's not an elected official, but she works at a government agency, and she was saying that because of some things that they have in there, or that they can't be members of like super exclusive organizations because of something.
We haven't encountered,
I mean, but that's
Yeah.
something like so we might
Yeah.
wanna pick her brain about that and look
Yeah.
into that too.
Yeah.
When I first was about 10 years ago, when I decided I wanted to join Rotary as a member, I was like shopping around at the local Rotary websites, and it said right on the Rotary Club of Harrisburg, membership qualifications, and it said, you must be at this level in your company, you must either supervise employees or you must be in charge of your own schedule or whatever. And so I did not qualify. I didn't even reach out to them because it said right on their website, they didn't want me. So I joined a different club, and I did really well there. It helped my career. It helped me just develop as a person, and now I'm the executive director of the Rotary Club of Harrisburg, which I felt excluded from before.
Did you take all that wording off?
Yes,
Great
I did.
job.
Day one. Let's talk about two more things and then we'll wrap up here. Let's talk about how you're marketing your club, how you use social media, how you use other marketing techniques. What are some best practices that are out there at this stage? Yeah.
So in Lincoln, we have a good contact at our print media. And so every time we have our legacy projects, we always get this full page. And it's amazing that after it is sent out, people still actually read newspapers. So I'm amazed because I don't read. I read it on my app, but then I'm amazed to know that people read newspapers and then they send an email, and I get those emails. They said they read about this and they're interested in Rotary. So the traditional media still works.
Yeah.
So that's one way of attracting members, and we're very successful at that.
Good. It's good to know.
I've had, well, I'm a retired broadcast raker, so I had to bring my Rotarians kicking and screaming into the marketing world. But we have a kind of a regular segment on one of our network affiliate stations once a month, and we go on and we talk about the big projects, or we'll bring one of the persons involved with Repair Affair. If we had that month, we're doing Repair Affair, we'll have the family on or something in video, but they are now see the benefit of telling our story. And that was one of my missions, is to tell Rotary's story.
Yes.
And that's how I present it to them. So it's critical today to do that.
And using the media and sending releases out
sure.
about what we're doing.
Right,
You know, I'm sure all of
correct.
us are doing
Right,
that, but
correct.
exactly. Getting the coverage, like we just had a project on Tuesday and every media outlet showed up and it was just a quick, quick thing and it's, using your media and the other stuff you can control with social media and everything else.
So what's the best social media campaign you've run? What social channels have you run it on?
All of them?
All of them. Omnipresent. We really, are omnipresent that way. And it's only, as you had said in the beginning here, simplicity, versus the complexity. And as I've listened to this, I mean, yes, I've spent my career in sales and things like that, but it's through the lens of programming and service and everything that every club does. I think it's really four things. It's like we have to attract, we have to acquire, we have to retain, and we have to leverage. And that's very easy to say, and there's lots of things underneath all of those things, but it's really that. It's tough, like you said, membership is difficult, but it's really the structure is simple.
And some of those things that are underneath those letters that you're talking about, and there's numerous ones of those.
Yeah.
You don't have to get into the weeds with making sure your entire membership knows all about them. It's the high points that you can keep it simple for them, because they're not going to be doing all the work at the end of the day. So, tell me more about other social media outreaches. What are you using social media for? How are you using it? Yeah.
We record our meetings and we have set up a YouTube channel, and so we upload all of the meeting recordings onto YouTube along with other stuff. We'll do like little videos. Our former president used to do a presidential address during COVID. I think he was doing those weekly. We did a PSA about COVID, put that out there.
The guy in the back is our Rotary member, Ed Atchison, and he's in charge of doing the same thing for recording the meetings and then post them on YouTube. Because if you're not going to be available during the meeting, you can always go back 3 or 4 days later as well.
So when people view the recording, do you give them attendance credit? We do.
We do.
We do.
I guess
That's one
I don't believe we
benefit.
do, but I think there's not a process in place for that.
Okay.
So, but I don't think that we worry about attendance as well.
We don't track attendance.
That's for those people who are in the, perfect attendance race. We still are one of those people.
But you know what, that brings up a point in that, when I joined Rotary 18 years ago, the reason I didn't join sooner is because I was operating from a false assumption that was from my grandfather's era, where it was the perfect attendance. I don't have time to be at a Tuesday lunch every week. And I figured that I couldn't join because of that. And I think there's a lot of that, like you said, Gene, about telling the story, the current story, the real story. Not
I
the
joined 3 years later for the same
disinformation.
reason. We had a 55% watermark. If you didn't meet 55%, you're not a worthy member, right? And so I didn't join, for the same reasons. And I wish I would have, because I'd have 3 more years experience. But that was a barrier. So part of it's removing barriers.
I think the flip side of that was just sharing, the whole attendance thing, and it's hard to track what we found. It was just hard to be accurate around it. But for the nominees for board, when they vote on that, they'll have the stats of the different events, or if you've co-chaired, and so you get a little bit of bio and their engagement level that I personally weigh very heavily on who I want to vote for the board. But back to the question around social media, within our board structure, and I've heard big numbers on how many committees some of the groups have. We don't have that many committees, frankly. It's pretty focused. But on the board, one of our board members is responsible for communications. And for instance, we have several phenomenal media and PR firm people represented within our membership. And so we've leveraged that expertise, and you're right, you have to evolve. So we're on Facebook and we're on LinkedIn and there's a Twitter feed. The media has been invited, so if the governor's going to speak, the media is always there. Our executive director does an excellent job in communicating. She's been interviewed a number of times, so we're getting good media rep by being a bit more intentional there. And then, keep it simple, it's not that complicated. We've done highlights of member highlights, why they're Rotarians and who they are, and showing the caliber. And it's very diverse, and so it's showing an image out there. And we're all just social crazies in Nashville, at least, and we're all on Facebook and we're all connected. So if something goes out and 100 of us hit it, and it goes out to all of our networks. Same thing with LinkedIn. So the power of that social media, especially when you've got members that are social, it does have a compounding effect. So I feel pretty good about how we've done it, but that way every board meeting we're very thoughtful around, okay, what are we doing? Is it fresh? Do we need to make changes? And now, help me, Lauren, what are we doing? The text, we're using text now.
No,
We talked about it,
we
but
talked about it, but no, that's too hard to
manage.
Yeah, we didn't want to overly, that had come up in our strategic planning from the group, and we didn't want to overly inundate people with it. But we also found that we needed, to have a consistency in the message of what's going out on each of those avenues, those social media avenues was necessary too.
Tracy, talk about that. I would say, we do use the texting.
Do you? How have people reacted to it?
They signed up for it. So it was, if they wanted to do it, they opted in. So it was, if you wanted to opt in to get a reminder, and we use it for one thing only, it's our luncheon speaker program. So we said we will do it for our speaker program, and then you would get the Zoom link or where we're going to meet as a reminder, and you get it on, you'll get it twice, and that's it. And so you opt in, we promised we wouldn't use it for anything else, we said that that's what we'd use it for. So we do use that, and we found people really like it, and they found it to be very effective, and especially like if you have to jump around, like as we're in the COVID era right now, and venues, or we're changing places and stuff, it's, you can quick look at your phone and be like, oh, okay, yes, the luncheon's today at this country club, or it's here.
Do y'all switch around where you're?
We have had to a little bit with some of the stuff going on with places and just it being able to be open. Our home that we normally are at is still closed. Our convention center downtown is still just kind of starting to reopen, so we've been at a couple different country clubs, and so we try to stay consistent as we can, but.
That's good.
How much does that service cost? What is the texting app platform that you use?
I'd have to find out. I don't remember which one we went with. To be honest with you, my marketing person does it.
So do you subscribe? Is it a subscription?
It's a subscription.
Okay,
It's a fee-based, yeah. I'll let you know.
Well, I think we're running out of time, unfortunately. I think we can go on and on and on.
You know what, I think the other thing too is that, like, we have a lot of people in the club who are, if you kind of like set the table, pack the lunch, we say, here, put this tweet in your feed. They don't have to write it, here, just copy and paste, done. Rising tide lifts all boats, and you know what, and that's what they like. Here, put this.
Simple.
And then it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for all your time and more importantly, your conversation.